6,000. That's how many bales were trucked all the way from Western Australia to a drought-stricken South Australia and distributed amongst 450,000 head of livestock this July. In times of crisis, hay isn't just feed, it becomes a lifeline. As climate variability intensifies, the value of high-quality fodder production, year in, year out, will become increasingly clear. And it is times like now where hay production is recognised as a critical resilience strategy while it sustains the productive capacity of herds and flocks across southeastern Australia. When applying for Nuffield, I never once thought of exploring another topic, and while I had initially planned to delve into the intricacies of the export hay industry, I acknowledged one circle of influence, and for me, that was my own backyard. As I navigate stepping into the family business in a formal capacity, I am acutely aware of the plethora of skills I must develop to drive a thriving enterprise and position it in a way that can withstand the pressures associated with a hotter, drier, and more extreme climate. In the 10 years I have worked in agriculture in northern Victoria, I have witnessed the repeated demand for high-quality hay as short-term droughts and repeated floods decimate grain and fodder yields. And so I set out on a quest to better understand the challenges high-quality hay production faces globally and their relevance to the Australian market. In 2023, a scathing article on the water use for export hay production in California's Imperial Valley drew national attention by using public records to name 20 extended farming families, claiming their combined water use exceeded that of entire US states. While I met many of these individuals, I didn't need to speak directly on the matter, as I think we can all appreciate the visceral reaction to being publicly shamed despite operating legally. But this moment serves as a powerful reminder for all agricultural sectors, especially those like hay, which are smaller, less visible, of the need to earn and maintain our social licence. It's naive to believe that hay will stay under the radar, whether it's the perception of exporting precious water, the carbon footprint from transport, or whole paddocks cut with minimal stubble left behind, scrutiny is inevitable. While countries like Austria formally recognise hay-based systems like hay milk farming as globally significant agricultural heritage, we don't enjoy the same public understanding or recognition here. But what we can do is come together to eliminate fragmentation in our sector and to speak with a united voice across producer and end-user industries. In saying that, fodder production continues to receive limited attention from Australian end-user RDCs. However, since the inception of my scholarship, there are encouraging signs of industry-led progress. Notably, Australian hay exporters and traders have taken the initiative in addressing the gap in extension services. Their efforts, through the organisation of grower field days, the establishment of demonstration sites, podcasts and webinars, do not go unnoticed. One of the recurring challenges I faced internationally was the limited volume of hay-specific research. In many cases, the responsibility for advancing such research is shared between public and private sectors, which deliver practical value to farmers. During my studies, Dr. Paul Cheng from the University of Melbourne advised that over 500 peer-reviewed publications exist on lucerne hay, whereas only 10 equivalent studies focus on oaten hay. This highlights a significant opportunity to generate meaningful, targeted research that supports the advancement of the Australian oaten hay industry for the export market while concurrently lifting the standard of production domestically. Research aside, one of the challenges I faced on this journey was a noticeable lack of collaboration among international hay-producing regions. Identifying and engaging with high-performing businesses globally proved challenging, and in some cases, there was a sense of hesitation or reluctance to engage. I feel it is important to emphasise that while broad insights can be gained from international counterparts, Australia's hay production systems are optimised for our local and incredibly unique conditions. Therefore, significant gains in Australian hay production as a direct result of global engagement is unlikely. Consequently, industry efforts should be directed toward fostering a collaborative global network that encourages peer-to-peer learning, particularly when all agricultural systems are faced with needing to produce the same or more with less. To account for this, the Australian Government has launched several programs to help farmers make more informed decisions in response to our changing climate. Two of these tools are My Climate View and the Climate Analogues program. While My Climate View focuses on interpreting climate projections, the Analog Towns tool matches future climate conditions in one region to those currently experienced elsewhere in the country. Together, these tools don't just raise awareness, they support farmers to make evidence-based, long-term decisions about climate adaptation. For those of us in hay production, this is critical. Our sector is inherently sensitive to seasonal variability, not just in terms of yield and quality, but also in the visual appeal and thus saleability of the end product. Using these tools, I considered future projections for Victoria's Southern Mallee. Under a high emissions scenario by 2050, the climate in Normanville, where we farm, could resemble current-day Merredin, Kalgoorlie, Ivanhoe or Port Pirie, of which are arid regions that typically experience hot, dry conditions and face challenges around low rainfall and water scarcity. To understand what this might mean in practice, we visited farmers, exporters and industry professionals in Western Australia's wheat belt. This gave us practical insights into the strategic decisions we may need to consider as our climate increasingly looks like theirs, including labour. How many people will it take to produce high-quality hay safely and efficiently with the pressures associated with a contracted season, less dews, higher temperatures, and a greater risk of extreme events? Insurance. With hay sheds notoriously hard to insure, how can we maximise our coverage? And relationships. Which partners, agronomists, exporters or end users are prepared to weather the highs and lows of a more variable climate with us? But most importantly, this trip highlighted an adopted mindset that seems to be correlated with arid farming conditions, one that accepts drought as an inevitable but responds proactively, aggressively, and has a strong focus on decisive action. When I asked myself what I wanted my audience to have left with, it was that hay is not just a byproduct. It's a resilience and growth tool, and to secure its future, we must invest in research and unify as an industry to raise its profile and value. The more exposure high-quality hay production has, the greater chance we have for its recognition as one of the fundamental pillars of Australian agriculture. I'd like to sincerely acknowledge Nuffield Australia and the Australian Future Drought Fund for their generous support and for inspiring the curious. And to the 2026 scholars, I want to leave you with some wisdom from my 96-year-old grandfather, who, when asked what his biggest piece of advice was for travellers, he looked at me and said simply, "Look for the stories and not just the views." Thank you.